blast doors aren't just for missile silos anymore.
Hey, John, so what's the story you have for us today?
I have an interesting story. I think, you mentioned earlier in another segment how good the researchers at Microsoft are. So I also want to give a plug out to the researchers at Google Project Zero. These guys are sharp as tacks. I mean, it's amazing some of the work that they do. And one of their folks is a guy named Samuel Gross. I always misspell that or mispronounce that, but maybe I got close this time. But Samuel does a lot of great work, and he actually started digging into this thing that, if you recall back in December, there was a story out of Apple iPhones where some reporters from Al Jazeera were hacked, and they think they suspect it was from the an NSO exploit of a 0-day with iMessage. And their research actually said if you were on iOS 14, you were not susceptible to this. And everybody's got to thinking, well, what did Apple change to make this happen? So these guys actually started digging into it at Google Project Zero. And what they uncovered is a new service that they're calling, Apple called it, I should say, BlastDoor. So they had to reverse engineer iMessage to find this. And they did this on a Mac and an iPhone. And they found this new service that is BlastDoor, which, and they and Apple also reworked iMessage. This is all not confirmed from Apple. Get this is just the reverse engineering. And so what this new service does, or this new mechanism for iMessage, is it's a real tight sandbox, BlastDoor is, and so it handles all the processing of all those things that are always a little suspect, like the pictures or links. So it sandboxes those things super tight, and it prevents, it from getting out there. And, so that's just one thing that they did. They found that they changed how it handles some of the dynamic memory addressing so that ASLR can't be exploited through just timing attacks. So, there's a lot of things that happen sometimes if you send this bit and you send this bit right after it or right, following it. We all know about buzzing and things like that. This is to prevent that. They actually did that. And the other thing, I think this is the one that kind of amazes me more than anything else, is that they call it, and this is what the paper itself says, it's called exponential throttling. So what they did is, for brute force attacks, they actually put a little timer in there. So if you hit a signal and it fails, then instead of being like, okay, I'm going to give you a millisecond or whatever amount of time, it actually starts putting this kind of randomization into the timing before it'll accept the next packet. And it gets longer and longer. And so that you can't just do a brute force, bang, 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 bang. It won't work because it's an exponential change, and it will even go up to 20 minutes. I mean, that's how long that they're planning for somebody if you're doing a brute force attack. So with this fix, I mean, nothing's ever secure, right? As they say, the bomber always gets through at some point. That's an old thing out of the war. But still, it's true that something will probably break this eventually. But I think Apple has done a really good job of figuring out the problems of iMessage. And not just saying, okay, I don't want to say wave their hands at it, but they actually took the time to figure out, I need to reconstruct or rebuild this, even if it takes more cycles, even if it takes more memory, takes more processor. I got to do it because I can't have these types of attacks anymore, especially when they know that it's been exploited.
That is great. I'd like to also just second your, appreciation for the Google team because they do put out some amazing technical research. Whenever I read it, I'm always amazed, it's a real contribution to the security community. So it sounds very interesting. It sounds like Apple did a few things right as well, which is great. It's always great when a company, kind of steps back and is like, okay, how do we do this the right way? And then they take the time and effort to do it. And they're not just worried about the CPU necessarily, although it's very important. but they are able to accomplish both the security, the accessibility, the availability, everything. Well, interesting, very interesting story.
Well, and the realization too is, I mean, these little things in our hands, they got more computer in them than you know, you really realize. So, you know, stop trying to be, you know, we're not in an 8-bit, you know, playing on my Nintendo, you know, or whatever back in the day. You know, I'm not trying to squeeze Atari, trying to squeeze something into 8 bits. I got more than enough space, more than enough processor. So if it takes me a little longer to get something and I'm secure, I think most educated users would accept that.
I'm also glad that Google, you know, reverse engineered something that was secure already instead of finding a bug. Because when they find those bugs, they're like pretty big bugs. So it's always good to see, you know, something like really secure being analyzed without major findings. That's great.
Yeah. It's also good to see in this BlastDoor technology that Apple created is that they're still putting a lot of focus on memory protection. I know a lot of their software is based off Swift, and people claim to say Swift is more of a memory safe program, unlike maybe C. But it clearly it's been happening that it can still get compromised. So I'm glad to see that Apple's putting in a big effort to still prevent buffer overflows and other memory attacks like ASLR, or compromising ASLR, I should say.
It's great to see them taking the effort to recognize this, and they get bad press, right? They don't want to be told that there, you know, there's a rootkit out there, or, you know, a way to jailbreak, you know, whatever term you want to use. They don't like that. They want to stop it.